15 plus years of experience, having helped the organization shape their developer documentation strategy. She holds a specialization in product documentation also. So apart from product and API documentation, she loves to play around Doxa's code using Hugo. Um, what a fab experience, I would say. And then coming to Sonia, she's a part of the software development team. She's also an enthusiastic technical content writing specialist in the software development sector, and she provides .NET and JavaScript developer components documentation, and also she documents for reporting or business intelligence solutions. She has experience working in .NET, WinForms, WPF, and JS web apps, which are basically the platform-based controls and certain applications. And we will make sure that by the end of the session, you leave with a plan to create effective developer docs. So yeah, so over to you, Pallavi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anshita. And I always tell this in every session without missing that I just love this intro part. You have the host introduces you to such good things. You love to listen to all those things. Okay, so good morning, everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good
Good morning.
morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, love that voice with so much enthu. Okay, so I am going to just let you know, just talk rather. I mean, what's there in all those presentations, right? So let's all talk about developer documentation. You all are here because you want to know more about it. But somewhere I feel that you all know about it already. Okay, so what I am going to do is just take a general session of how developer docs are, what do you really look forward for, what are you looking for, are you scared of it, why are you scared of it, right? And then over to Sonia for what she does in her org or in her company. Okay, and of course I don't know about that .NET, and also I'm really like, ooh, and when I heard about Sonia, right? So this is all really very interesting. I'll start sharing my screen because, we have to go by some rules or other customs about sharing the slides or write something on the slides. Okay, so the art of writing developer docs is today's title, the topic of discussion. I will be doing discussion. I mean, I will discuss with you and not rather just give a plain, what you say, or just a plain this presentation. Okay, so this is the art of developer documentation. I want you all to be very interactive. Okay, so but once you answer any of the question, please do go back and mute yourself so that others can also, and that background noise of Saturday morning is not really hampering our video recordings. Okay, so this is art. We are talking about the art of writing developer docs. Okay, so first thing is exactly what are developer docs, right? Anybody can tell what are developer docs who have not really worked on developer docs, who are new, you have heard it for the first time, but what do you guess about all these developer docs? Anybody?
API document.
Okay, that is a type of developer doc, if I can say, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else? I'm waiting for answers. This is not I'm just going to give you a lecture on what are developer docs.
So Pallavi, I feel, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, Netra here. I have not worked with API documentation. This is pretty new to me. So I'm going to guess from the word developer docs that it is not user documentation per se, but the user is sort of your developers, and something is being tailored exclusively for them in their language, their so-called, developer language.
Great.
That's my guess.
Okay, that's awesome. Anybody else? What do you understand by developer docs?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, aligned with Netra that the
audiences for developer docs are basically developers and highly tech persons. So, and if you talk about the types of documentation, API documents and cookbooks or the recipe, when we say very latest and trendy kind of document, those are considered as the developer docs.
Okay, awesome. Before I go ahead, Anshita, can you exactly tell me what you can see on the screen? Because I'm only sharing one slide. So you can see the whole slide only?
I can see the slide, but I can also see the Teams window.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Now?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. So actually, I just opened this Teams window so that I can see who's talking. Anyway, so fine. Now, as you all said, first thing which comes to our mind is the developer docs is related to APIs only, right? Because that's what we've been hearing about all the time. Developer docs, developer, that's like very common. Okay. And of course, when we are writing about the developer, when we are saying developer, first thing which comes to our mind is this guy, right? For developers. So we are writing for developers. I mean, you could have guessed it. Why such a big session for it, right? I'm sure you must have rolled your eyes on this. Anyways, so why developer documentation? So now why developers are using this documentation? Now it's already there on the screen. I should have asked you this question before only. Anyways, to integrate two applications and to exchange information probably. So developers are going to code. That is what they are going to do. That is their job, right? And they are going to use this code, your application. Now there are two applications which need to be integrated probably, or there are two applications, or my application needs information from your application, okay, from your database. So that's why all this integration and all we are not going to do, anybody else is not going to do, the developers are going to do. So obviously that is the developer documentation. Okay, now if you write and give it to them, if they might not be, probably they are not from the same domain, they are not from the same background, they might be freshers who are trying to integrate two applications, who are trying to exchange information or data, right? So what happens is you need to do better. You need to give them better quality documentation for them to understand, right? I mean, if I go to some foreign land and like say someone, I've been to Thailand and I love when people speak English over there, right? Even if it is like broken English, because I can understand English, that person can understand English, right? So why not use this? So they have their own language, like the C language or Python, JavaScript, this, that, whatever. I mean, whole lot of languages are out there. But what is the logic behind that code? What that particular piece of code is doing, right? They Everything cannot be just understood. So why not write something in English and share so that they can understand? And you all know why we exist. Why we exist, tell me. Why technical writers exist? Hello?
Because we
Nobody
really need
knows?
to
Yeah.
because we really need to understand what developers are basically uh, coding or what developers have developed. So as a person on the other side, to make them understand what exactly the thing is, so supporting document are always required.
Yes, absolutely right. The thing is more than that. Anybody would like to add to that?
Hi, this is Pratik.
Yes.
To portray technical, complex information in easy to understand language that a newbie or a fresher developer
Yeah.
can also
See, a
understand
technical
and
writer
start
speaks.
working.
Yes, technical writer speaks. So I would put it in a very, very crude language, right? They don't know English. That's why we are here. If they really knew how to put that in English properly, we wouldn't exist, right? So we know how to put all this documentation properly in English or in any other language. I mean, the expertise in the language definitely lies with us. Okay, so definitely, um, that's why we are hired for the developer documentation. Even developer need to understand each other's language properly, and that's why we are here. Okay. Okay, so who is the audience? So when I am talking about my application and integrating with others' application, so who is the audience? Okay, so developers are, we write for developer, we write for them to consume this my application or my data from my database. So who's the audience? So there are two types of audience here which we write for, and that is decision makers and developers. Who are the decision makers? So once you want your product to be consumed by some other, integrate some. Now, can you give any example of integration of two applications? Anybody can do that? I'm
Um,
waiting.
prob Probably a sales versus a billing. So from sales to billing, how does the information flow?
That can be only one application also, right? But yes, sales and billing, yes, two applications. You are
Yeah,
using it in every day. You are using it every day.
probably Word with Adobe or Adobe with Word.
Are you using that? Are you using that? No, I don't think so, right? That's a special
I
case.
can say Uber, where Gmaps is used in Uber.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So using the integration of those applications every day, you're using Swiggy, you're using Uber, you're using Ola, you're using, you can now just open any your applications and see that there are 10,000 applications which you're using every day, which are integrated with each other. Like if you order something, you can track your Swiggy delivery man and that person, I mean, executive, and that person is, you can see the map and you can see that that you can see Google over there, right? So what Swiggy is doing is integrating with Google, because all the data is there with Google. Why would, again, you put geostationary satellites and GPS everywhere and then create a whole lot of maps and data, but it is already there. So I better go and just integrate with them. Of course, you have to pay them, right? But then we have to see that who you are writing for, right? So when, if Google it has created a whole application maps for other businesses as well, like Swiggy and Uber and Ola, and likewise. So what would they, who would they, pitch to? Like, if I'm an entrepreneur, and I would like to go for something like Swiggy. Kindly mute yourselves. Okay, so what would happen is, if I am an entrepreneur and I'm making an application such as Swiggy or Uber, I would like to see how Google works for me, how Google Maps work for me, right? So the CEOs, the product managers, the software architects, business managers, all would sit together, how it scales to me, how is it feasible for me cost wise as well, and we collectively decide that, oh yeah, I think Google Maps has great data and great connecting, how to connect, how to get that information, how to integrate Google Maps into my product. Okay, and if I have a good documentation, I would be very happy with it. Once I acquire that, I pay Google Maps that, see, I'll be using this maps for such long time and this and that, everything. Then I would give it to the developers, right? So the developers would be actually using um, your application, integrating. Those would be the people who would actually use or integrate information from the others' apps, right? So when you are writing developer documentation, please see that both you have to write for both of these audiences. So one are the decision makers and the developers. Okay. The next is
Pallavi.
yeah.
Is your laptop charged? Looks like it's going to die.
Um, you can see the next slide.
No, it's not about
Types of
slides.
developer documentation.
It's not about slide. Is your laptop getting charged or something? It looks like dying battery. It might close. The
No,
icon
no, no.
probably.
It's already charged. You can see the slides, right? That's it, right?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
fine.
all.
Please go ahead with that. Okay, so next is what other types of developer documentation. So when you say that developer documentation, first thing it comes to mind is the API documentation because it's the most widely used developer documentation. But then you might have also heard about the SDKs, that's the software development kits. Okay. Now, what are software development kits? Those are pre-written codes for the other developers to you can just get started. So it's just like we all have seen kids, right? uh, some at some point or the other, the kids love to make rotis, right? They see their moms or cooks in their house. Somehow I've seen that every kid loves to make roti at one point of time. So when a kid asks you, ki, I also want to make roti. So chapati, right? Roti, chapati, whatever you call it, pulka. So what do? You don't give the flour, right? You don't give the flour to the kid. You take the flour, you put water, you knead the dough, and then you pick out a small part of that dough and say, okay, go play, make a roti, and then probably obviously the way they make it, you'll not even eat it, right? But then that's how you give for them to develop a roti. That's exactly what SDKs are, right? So it's just like you to give them a head start as to how you are going to integrate, or a kind of sample code which they will integrate into their application and start building on it. Okay, so these are SDKs. Again, these are specific to the language or the platform. Like for example, it's written over here, SDKs, Android SDKs, iOS SDKs, right? Now, why? Those are software development codes. Those are small bits of codes, pieces of codes which are given and said ki, okay, make the roti. Okay. Now, can you make a veg curry out of that dough? Can you make, dal out of that dough? No. You can only make a roti out of that dough. Okay. For dal, you need different kind of ingredient. For curry, you need different kind of ingredient, right? So all those, so that's why these are language specific. Okay. And you can see it on the PPT right now on the slide that it may have APIs, it has code samples, it has libraries. It may, I mean, all these may include network protocols, example and test products, compiler, all these. So again, what are these things? These things are the flour, the water. I usually add a pinch of salt to my rotis. So that salt, a tablespoon of oil or something, sorry, a teaspoon of oil or something, right? So these are the ingredients which are raw, which I am combining and then giving it to the kid to make a roti out of it. Okay, so these are software development kits. Again, let's come to the very famous application programming interface, APIs. So APIs allow uh, two application to connect. Now, all the SDKs definitely have at least one API, okay, because it's integrating. You're integrating two applications. If you're integrating two applications, there has to be some API which needs to connect to those two applications. And then we come to application programming interface. So these two digital platforms, the APIs allow two digital platforms to communicate with each other. And so when they are communicating, exactly the developer knows how to communicate with the other app. So the Swiggy developer or um, the Zomato developer or Uber, Ola developer, they exactly know how to communicate using the codes, using the parameters, using things, using all those ingredients of the API. They exactly know how to get information, how to integrate with my application. Okay, so that's why again tech writers come into picture. You need to know, you need to understand. For SDKs, you should have a bit of that, that technical bent of understanding that language. For APIs, not really required at the very basic level, but you should understand what that particular. Now, see, you understand the flour, you understand what that oil is, how much water that much of dough needs, and how much salt to put into it. Unless and until you understand those ingredients, you cannot make a proper dough, right? So similarly, in APIs, there are different parts of that, different elements of that API, and you need to understand that what this API is going to do, how it's going to connect, whether it's going to bring information, whether it's going to integrate, how it's going to integrate, how is it going to look like, right? So this is APIs. Another third type of developer documentation is writing about the code. Okay, I have included this here because it's not a complete documentation site, but tech writers are hired in some companies. Like a couple of years back, I myself had given interview. I was not selected, but I had given interview for Uber, where they had asked for tech writers who understand code and they write comments. Okay, this is because people keep leaving, the developers keep leaving the company, and new developers come in. So what exactly is going on in that code? What that particular, like for example, you can just see it over here on the slide, what this button is going to do. Okay, so can you see that here? Can you see that there are 2 lines of code here? Okay, right? So you are writing a comment in the code for that technical. Usually this is all done by the developers. Companies encourage developers to write the comments so that at least they understand if some other person comes in, or they can just see that how the logic flows, what's the algorithm, how is the logic flowing through the code, all these things. And I just picked this up from Wikipedia, that a comment is a programmer readable explanation or annotation in the source code of a computer program. They are added with the purpose of making the source code easier for humans to understand. That's what I just said, right? And are generally ignored by compilers and interpreters, obviously, because these need not be processed. This is just for understanding. If I have written a piece of code and it has this kind of logic, then I don't have to go and read the whole, because the codes are not like simple 2 or 3 line paragraphs which you used to do in college or school times, right? These are big codes, and well, the logic is quite complex. So it's always good. So developer documentation, you don't really have a big website of it, because these are codes, these are internally used. But then companies do hire, and they say that is developer documentation. If you have given interviews for any startups, they really require these kind of developer documentation. Okay, and they really don't know what tech writer is, and they would say, oh, do you? Of course, for this you need to know at least some basic languages, right? I mean, you should have at least a basic understanding of languages. Rest, the developers can explain that this block of code does this, or these are the functions, and this, and then all those things, right? But these are the main 3 types of developer documentation which I've come across. Uh, as I said, again, going back to what SDKs are, then what APIs are, and then writing comments, actually explaining the codes or the programs. As I said, usually startups would always, ask in their interviews about this developer documentation. When you say that you are kind of expert in developer documentation, they might just go and ask you that, oh, do you know this language? And for that sake, if you know one language, it's very easy for you to understand the language of any other language. Okay, so you can make a career out of all these three, right? All these three. Once you understand kind of a bit of a code, you can do SDK documentation and this, writing comments, developer documentation very easily, very easily. Okay. For APIs, you really do not need to know the code unless nowadays the advanced technical documentation requires understanding of any code and then generating response requests and response for the APIs. Okay. So this is kind of a very high level information about the developer documentation. I have some, but then this whole session is about art of writing developer documentation, right? So what now? You know now who is the audience. You know that developers want. You know all this thing. Now I didn't write all these things. Now, what is the thing? What is the art behind it? Okay. I want you all to spell that art. If it is a developer, right? You are writing for a developer, right? So what do you think will be the first thing which you should think about while writing for developers?
Understand the
More structured.
needs of the developers.
Mm, mm,
Understand the
mm.
needs of developers. Their level of understanding. Expectations.
Key requirements for the documentation.
Okay, I'll just put it down and then we can prioritize that. Ravi, what were you saying?
Understand the expectation and needs of developers.
Okay, so that is the understanding part that we've already done.
Okay.
Right? So
Accessibility.
now is the time to write. So what would you have something in mind first thing?
More structured and accessible.
Structured is okay. Accessible, okay, I'll put it here. Anything else?
Key requirements of the documentation.
System requirements.
System requirements, okay. Understanding key requirements, we've already understood everything. Now it's the time to write. So now think about you being a technical writer. So what would you think?
Probably
target functionalities of the application.
Sorry.
Which tools to use to write?
So tools are usually, already given by the company. You don't have anything really. You don't have a say. If they say you write it in Word, you'll write it in Word, right?
Target audience.
How about business use cases?
Workflow diagram.
Yes, workflow diagram is something really good.
Workflow diagram, which includes UML and data flow diagrams.
Data flows, right? Great. Okay, I'll put it here only. Data flows.
Functional requirement documentation.
Getting started. First we have to write.
Okay,
Key
getting
functionalities
started.
of the application.
Sorry?
Business use cases.
Key functionalities of the application.
Functionalities of the application. Okay.
Examples.
Yeah, so someone
Snippets
said
or
use
examples.
cases. Someone said use cases and examples. Okay. What should be the writing style?
Template. Any template.
Okay. You're close. Who said template? Please
Me,
tell your
Raghavendra
name.
here. Raghavendra here.
Raghavendra. Okay. Okay. So template, yes. So Raghavendra, when you are saying template, that means what?
What template in the sense a workflow of the document, right from the introduction we can have that particular flow for documentation, right? What is the introduction of it? What is the use? Then you come into that code with the examples, and then you
Fine,
talk
fine,
about the
fine.
use cases.
Got it. So if you are creating a template, then that means that you should use what should be your writing style, or what should you keep into mind? I've said that in most of the classes.
guide.
Tell me.
Style guide. Basically, style guide.
Structure.
Style guide. Okay. What again? I'm repeating my question. If you are writing for a developer, right? If you're writing for a developer, first thing is, okay, what should be your writing style? First thing. I'm rephrasing my question. The same question.
One thing I'll be free of is
Easy
that
to
I can
understand.
include tech jargons. I can include
Keep it
tech
as
jargons.
simple
I
as
don't have to worry
possible.
about it.
Absolutely. Minimalism at its best. And I will just, that is the key to the art of writing developer documentation. So you can actually, this is the only thing, and pardon my, okay, right? You cannot, so when you are writing for technical product documentation, probably in concept part, you might write that, this is this, and you leverage this feature, you use these kind of words. Developer documentation, no, a big no. You actually don't even write full sentences for that, okay? That this is the following these two parts, no. Usually not. And you see, and I'll show you the examples, okay, from one of the best, uh, some of the best websites, okay? So minimalism, that's why I really love developer documentation, because it is really the minimum you write. It's the best for developers. They're not interested what you're going to leverage out of this attribute, and this attribute is going to give you this. They're not really bothered. Excuse me, just tell me how it works. Okay. They don't have time. And why we are giving, so good documentation gives you sample codes. As I said, SDKs give you sample codes, APIs give you sample request response. Why? They don't want to do their work also, right? It's good that it's just like I said, a trial room. Every mall now has a trial room. You can just go and check whether this dress fits you or not, right? So it's a trial room, and they give you this thing so that see, please take my code, please use my application, please use this application for integration, and see, I'm giving you a trial room also for you to try, right? So all these things. So this is about minimalism, okay? So now this, and trust me, this is the only art you need to use for developer documentation. Like, for example, even in your when you are writing about this code, right? Comments in this code, you will not, this line does this piece of code does this, who's bothered? Just write, this uh, like, for example, compute, or give sum of 10, sum of 10 numbers, sum of 100 numbers, Fibonacci sequence, like something like that. That's enough. That's enough for the developer to understand that this whole code gives me a sum of 10 numbers, or whatever, right? You don't have to, this code gives you, this is not, this, you just don't need to write. So minimalism at its best. So very good for introverts who don't like to write much, right? So happens with API documentation. I have got some really good websites to show before I go. Probably I've taken more time than what was given to me. I've already opened some of you. Okay, can you see the GitHub? Of course, you all know GitHub is for developers. REST API, very simple, 2 lines, right? Some codes, something, and exactly the developer knows what to do, how to do, and they just extract. But yes, of course, minimalism does not mean that you write wrong English. Okay, it just means that you do not need to really go through long sentences. This, if you see the landing page of this Heroku Dev Center, it's simply like, what you can do, and then how to get on with it. So it supports Node.js, Ruby, Python, all these things. Coming to API documentation, this is my favorite website for API documentation, and you can see that. Can you see? I'm just giving you an example, like how if you have to write about this attribute ID, this is the description about that attribute, unique identifier of this object, right? This attribute explains, or this attribute means, describes, and it is a unique identity. No, nothing like that. But of course, it has to be very precise, very minimal, very minimalistic, and explains everything. So you should understand what exactly these mean. Some of these API documentation, you can simply, they give a sandbox, as I said, some trial room. You can just try it over here and see if this works for your application or not. This is one of the very good weather forecast application. So again, if you go and see mm, your mobile, and you see you have a weather application, uh, that that is embedded. So where is this getting all this data from? It is getting all this data from this open API, open weather, I mean, similar kind of website, and it is showing it to you. So either your operating system, or whatever application, your clock application, where it has where you can see the weather, it is integrated with some weather application, and brings in that data for you, for to see what kind of weather uh, you have, or you might be expecting, or different different things, right? One of my favorite, again, website is this Oxford Dictionaries, and this Oxford Dictionaries API documentation is really wonderful. So again, if I have to create a website with which gives of course like a dictionary, so why would I again go and create a whole database of names, adverbs, sorry, meanings, adverbs, this, that? I would simply, which is already there in the market, I would simply connect with Oxford Dictionaries through APIs, get real-time information, and display it in my application. Okay. So if we say see all these API references, okay, can you see these API references over here? We have very, very minimalistic kind of information here, just apt. Okay, so this is the only art where you really need to, because when we are writing for product, okay, we always say we cannot just create a table and just leave it like that, right? So what we do, the following table describes this, or see this, the following image describes this. So we have to write all those things, which is like, you can just do away with all that thing in your API documentation, SDK documentation, right? So yeah, so this is a summary of what exactly things have in store for you, and there's no looking back. Okay, so just don't get worried about AI things, and what will happen to. Only thing, you just need to upgrade yourself, that's it. So I'm over. I'm done with that. I'll be available for the open forum sessions if you have. Right now, I do not have time for question and answers, because I've already taken Sonia's time. She'll bash me later. You ate up my time also. So guys, I'll be there in the open forum if you have any questions. And open forum is we have many experienced technical writers here in the as attendants, as participants right now. They also can answer questions about how they do developer documentation in their own organization. So over to you, Sonia. And Sonia is going to tell exactly how she does it in her company. Okay. And it's really good to see how that whole developer documentation takes shape in her company. So over to you, Sonia, and bye bye everyone. I hope you enjoyed.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Sonia.
Hi.
Over to
Am I
you.
audible?
Hi, Sonia.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hi.
yes.
Yeah. So, thank you so much for taking your time out and came to attend this session. I'll try my best to give a good session. So, I'll share the screen. Can you see the screen?
No, Sonia.
You can't?
No.
Not yet.
Can you see now?
Yes, now we can.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you can see the slide, right?
Yeah. Please
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So we are going to explore the art of writing developer docs. Right, about me. I'm working as a technical writer at Grape City. I have 4+ years of work experience in creating developer docs for desktop and web-based software products. And what we're going to learn here is we'll be learning a little bit about developer documentation, the release process that we have at our organization, the help authoring tool, how we can use it, creating table of contents, creating a getting started page, how to create that, creating effective doc plans, and then adding code snippets, other tips and tricks. So let's get started. So developer documentation for software develop. Yeah. Okay. Developer documentation for software development. Developers need software tools such as UI controls and libraries. So, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Sonia. I think we need to mute somebody who's
Requesting everyone to mute themselves, please.
So yes, you might have seen so many different kinds of apps. Like this is a web app. There are also desktop apps, mobile apps, apps for Android TV. So all these apps, they really look cool, right? But beneath the look of these apps, there is a code running. There's a layer of code or API, you can say. So as you can see, this is a web-based app, a dynamic dashboard showing the financial data. Okay, so this is a dashboard. So here we'll be using controls like a dashboard control. Then we have another control, which is tile boxes. So at our organization, the developers, they create these controls, UI controls, which have a UI interface, and then the libraries. So this is the sales dashboard. You can see uh, even within this even within this dashboard control, there are many other controls as well. As you can see, there are spark lines. This is a grid. There are spark lines. There are bullet graphs. Okay, and as I change from one country to the other, you can see how the metrics are changing. Okay. Such as sales. And again, we have more controls. Like this one is the radial gauge, the linear gauge, sorry, the linear gauge. And then we have, again, charts. This is a line chart. This one is the column chart. So all these controls are working in integration. That's how an app forms. So also I'll show you another app, which is a desktop app. The app which we saw previously was a web app. It was running on the browser. This one is a desktop app. Okay, here you can see a big grid. So every app, is nothing but an integration of so many UI controls and libraries. And this one is a map. Within again the map control, you can see the slider tool, the pan control, and again you can see a chart, the funnel chart, line chart. So this is basically showing the product sales, and you can use the filter control. Okay, filter control to filter, let us say, filter the city. It comes with just a second. Again, filter control. Let's say we want to filter a few models, just the Toyota and Lamborghini, then it'll show just those. Okay, that's how this is an example of a desktop dashboard. So coming back, coming back at our organization, we write documentation for these UI controls and libraries. So do you have any idea about UI controls and libraries? Hello? Yeah.
If you could explain that for beginners like me, that will be great, Sonia. Thank you.
Okay. UI controls and libraries, as I had, UI controls are nothing but input controls. Okay. On the app, you will see many input controls, or like buttons, ribbon. As I had shown in the example, you can see there's a map control. Okay, there is a chart control, a funnel chart, a line chart, and there is a grid. So these components are integrated to form an app. Okay, again, there is a, here you can't see a scroll bar, but even a scroll bar is also an input control. Okay, so an input control is nothing but an interactive component on your app's user interface. And these controls, you can see them, or you can see the designer. You can see the design UI, but beneath all these controls is the classes, the classes they represent. For example, I'll show you, for instance, an example of a button control. Okay. Button, simply what a button does is that when you click on the button, it does an action. Right. So we have different types of button controls, toggle button, split button, drop down button. So, and buttons can be integrated. And as you can see here, what we do is that in APIs, all these buttons have, all these controls, UI controls have classes beneath them. So if you want to create a button, you need a button class. If you want to create a repeat button, you need a repeat button class. If you need to create a hyperlink button, you need a hyperlink button class, or drop down button class. Okay, it goes like that. Okay, likewise, we also have checkboxes. What does the checkbox do? Hello?
It either includes or excludes something.
Yeah, that's right.
Allows you to make choices between 2 or 3 options, basically.
Yeah, 2 or 3 options, right. So again, for this thing, this is its functionality. So the developers have created a class for this. Okay, you can see it here, right? Checkbox class. Then all the properties or the events involved with it. What could all be the events involved with the checkbox class? Can you say? Can you guess?
By events, do you mean that one or more items are being included, as in the combinations? Let's say there are 4 checkboxes.
Enable, disable.
Yeah, exactly. We can check it, you can uncheck it. So these are the actions that we can do it. So events means basically actions. So yeah. So these are the properties. So the properties, the methods, and the events which we know in a class. Most of us are we know about OOP concepts, object-oriented programming concepts. So a class contains properties, methods, events. So all these methods, events, and properties are decided based on the functionality of the control. Hope I'm clear.
Yes, Sonia.
Okay, so then again, we have combo boxes. There's so many input controls, right? Combo boxes, hyperlinks, combo boxes. Just a second. Then the hyperlinks. As you can see, all these controls have an API under them, okay? Or you can say classes under them, with which we can code. So I'll show you on an IDE how it works. Can you see the screen of the IDE?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is a Visual Studio in which we code. Okay. So for example, a button. Okay. Let's say a checkbox. Okay, we'll go with the button. We drop the button onto the form. This is the design view that you can see, and you can change the properties. Change the properties. Change the this is the property. You change the text. Change the image associated with the button. Change the text alignment. Add events to it. An example I have shown here is of save button. Okay, so what we can see initially is a UI, right? But beneath this UI, I'll show you what is there. There is a whole code running. That is the button save, the text used, the style back color, the dimensions used, and everything. Just wanted to show you how API, how the components in the API work. So is it clear now? Hello?
Yes, Sonia,
Basically, a
very much.
developer.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So UI controls are input controls that are interactive components on your web, on your app's user interface. Okay, developer, and again, these UI controls are made using developer frameworks. Developer frameworks are nothing but they provide a wide variety of controls you can use in your UI, such as button. I'll show that again. In order to use a button, or in order to use any other control, we need developer frameworks, right? So the frameworks are here. For example, there's a .NET application. So it runs on Windows. Here we have different assemblies like Microsoft C Sharp, system code, system data. These are all the frameworks on which this particular application will work. So in order to code, we need an IDE, which is an integrated development environment, where we can code, where we can debug. Okay, if there are any errors in the code, we can debug. Then we can build applications if we want to build, right? So finally, if we want to build the application and see the output, here I'll show you one more thing. We have done more extra lines of code. That is, what I've done is that the button save, I have done that is when my mouse enters a button, it should show a different color, and when my mouse leaves the button, it should show a different color. This is the functionality that I've added, and I have added more code here. That is where the developers can use. So developers know how to code, so they will add more code in the code behind. Okay, so this is an event button save mouse enter. They have changed the back here. You know how back color, fore color have been set. Now we'll run the code and see. First of all, we'll build a solution, and then we will run the code. Your build has succeeded, and then we will run the code and see. So when we enter the button, save button, you can see how the foreground, background, everything changes. Then again, then we leave a different color occurs. Different color can be seen. Okay, so this is how a button has been. This is how a developer does. He uses a button from, he buys the button from our company, a button control, and then whatever he wants to do, he can do with that. All the properties, all the things will be available here. For example, if you want to see the properties, usually these can be seen here, all the API, everything, whatever he wants to configure, the data, everything, the properties that they have to use, the methods, the events, everything can be, every info will be here, and they can make the kind of application they want to make. Okay, so is it clear till now?
Yes, Sonia, very
Yes,
much.
Sonia, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Sonia. I have a question.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
Go
this
ahead.
is Gaurav here. So, as you are showing all these IDs and all, so I want to know what exactly is the part done by developer and what part is done by you as a technical writer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually,
actually,
voice
voice
is
is
echoing.
Yes.
Yes.
Sonia, can you just mute for a minute?
Okay.
I think maybe.
Okay, I will repeat again. Uh, my question is like, as you are displaying this using the ID and rendering the codes. So what exactly is the responsibility from the developer? Like what code you are getting from the developer and how much code you are writing from your end as a technical writer?
You're on mute.
You are on mute.
So what we have is that we are getting NuGet packages from the developers, from our developers, NuGet packages or assemblies, right? So there are some samples provided by the developers, but we cannot use those samples directly. We take some info from the samples and we code by ourselves. Sometimes you'll have to code a lot. Like I would say 50% coding is from our side. The document presentation will be from our side. Whatever code goes there will be 50% from our side.
Okay, all right.
So Sonia
I
Kostavya.
have a question.
Yes.
Yep. So the question that I have is like, as you've shown that you are configuring that button with some coding.
Yeah,
So as a tech writer, like how you deciding that how much configuration you need to do from your end? As you said that some of the things you need to do. So for an example, on a certain elements you are configuring. So that how you decide that like for that button that it should be look like this. And so are you getting any input from anyone, or
Yeah.
how the process is working?
We have a style guide according to which colors are allowed, which how should the application look.
Okay.
So we have such style guides, and again the product specifications provided by the developers. So they will be having all those new features that need to be included, that must be included. I'll come to that.
Got it. Yep. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So again, there is another one, which is apart from UI controls, there is also a section called libraries. Now, libraries not have a UI. They are without the UI. For example, data engine library. Okay. So they don't have a UI, but they work from behind. Data engine is used to extract data from complex data sets. So it's a tool like that, but it is not. It does not have a UI. Okay. That these are two types of components on which we work. Then again, next slide. Yeah, this is something as technical writers we should be aware of. Okay, it's the same process that a developer does. Okay, so an outside developer, not in an organization, the one who is using a product, he will use our control classes and libraries in his source code. Okay, and then then IDE, which is a Visual Studio Code, or any kind of other IDE, like you can use, different types of IDE. Do you know any other type of IDE apart from
Uniface is one. Uniface.
IntelliJ.
Eclipse.
Yeah, Eclipse. Yeah.
Eclipse.
So what all these do is that they compile the code, okay, and they finally give you an app, final app. Okay, so our controls and libraries can be used by the developer in his source code, and he will integrate it into his final app. That is what is happening. Is it clear? Any doubt here?
Yes,
Yes.
Sonia.
Yes.
Okay. Now going on to important skill sets for documentation developer writers. An inevitable skill set is HTML. Okay, it's very useful to create widgets, essential for your documentation, indispensable for a documentation writer. It is also good if you have a knowledge of CSS. So the best resource for HTML, according to me, is MDN, Mozilla.org. Okay, it covers HTML in detail. Then we have higher level languages. This is also important for a documentation, developer documentation writer. Basic knowledge should be there about the high level language. It could be Java, it could be C++, it could be C#, it could be JavaScript, it could be Ruby, it could be what else? Can you just say some of the languages? Any languages
Python.
that you...
Python.
Yeah, Python.
Python.
let's say a machine learning company wants to hire you, you should know Python, right? You should know the framework on which it works. You should know what else? You should know the IDE with which it works. For example, PyTorch is the framework used for Python for machine learning, right? And PyCharm is the IDE used. Then you should be also be aware of OOP concepts. Do you know some of the OOP concepts? Any of the object-oriented programming concepts?
Abstraction, encapsulation.
Inheritance, yeah, encapsulation. All these concepts should be known, because when
Right.
yeah, I'll tell you, because when we work on this, when we work while coding, for example, we need to know, let me show you a class. Let us go for the drawing class, system drawing class. So this is a class. Okay, this is a class, right? So this phone converter is a class. Now it is inherited from which? It could be inherited from another class, right? So features like inheritance, all these things, you should have a good knowledge about these things. Also setting the properties, setting the name, size, or how to set the properties, how to write event handlers. Basic things, these are required from a developer documentation writer. Then one tip can be that you should be comfortable coding in different languages. Keep upskilling. You can, because if you know one language, for example, if I know C++, it is easier for me to learn C#, JavaScript, Java, because the same concept is followed in all the languages. Okay. And then another set of skill sets is using an IDE. An IDE is nothing but it is a software. Like I showed you, this is Visual Studio, okay, where we create .NET applications. So we need to know an IDE, an integrated development environment. It is a software for building applications that combine common developer tools into a single graphical user interface. You can also see the user interface here, as I had shown before, the form design. You can drag and drop any control. You can drag and drop progress bar. So the developer is able to see all the controls here, label, whatever. So whatever tools you need to develop an application, you'll have it here. That's why we use a IDE. You can also go for debugging any error you have. For example, if I have done like this, okay, this is the error, and if I try to run this without the proper syntax, what happens is that it will show an error. Can you see there were build errors? We'd like to continue and run the last successful build. Okay, so this is how an IDE works, and you can see a message build failed. Is it clear now? Do you have any doubts?
We will take the doubts in the end in the open forum, Sonia, if so they have.
Okay, okay, all right. Then so as I told you, an IDE basically consists of a source code editor. We can build apps. There is also the debugger. Then we have other tools. Other tools, most of you might have used Confluence, Jira, same GitHub. Okay. Also, we need a tool to add a project to the source control so that we can take different versions of the project. And then going to the main release process that we follow. First is checking the release dashboard for release dates, code freeze, doc freeze, marketing release. Okay, so the developer, a documentation writer will check the release dashboard. And then he will read through the UI control specifications, features shared by the PMs for the latest release. And then what we do is that we create a document schedule describing the features, so listing the features, what all features are coming. And then we share the document schedule. At each step, we share everything with the PMs. Okay, PMs share details with us, which is specifications, and we also give them back. We also share the doc schedule with them, and then we get approval. Only after approval, you can go to the next step, and that is create documentation plans. We'll discuss about that later. Documentation plans are very important for, and like they serve as a framework before you really write content. So here we will be adding the feature specification. It is at this stage we will be adding the code samples. All these, the fifth step is the most, I would say, the most rigorous step. And then we share these plans with the PMs, and then we again prepare documentation help file. Using these documentation plans, we prepare the final documentation help file. create the TOC, everything, and share with the PMs, get approval, and then finalize the help files, add the APIs in the doc. Along with that, just before the release, we also add the release notes, and then the documentation is released. Okay. Now, while doing all these things, we need a help authoring tool. The authoring tool used, you can use different types of authoring tool. Many of you might have used RoboHelp, Cloud Tutorial, Madcap Flare, Helpsmith, ClickHelp, Confluence, Help Studio. So I'll show you just a glimpse of Help Studio. Okay, this is how Help Studio looks like. Okay, you can create different topics. And you might have seen these things: assemblies, databases, web services, Java projects. This is how we add the APIs. Okay. This particular application, Help Studio, it provides, the writer, it helps the writer to add assemblies, .NET, it could be .NET assemblies, any kind of assembly, Java projects, JavaScript libraries, anything can be added. And we also have an option for source control. We can also import files from other, you can import other Word files and all. And also there are widgets for adding code, many other functionalities. Then, yeah. Another important thing is creating table of contents for developer documentation. We need to know that, we already know that the audience is the developer. So the table of content serves two purposes. It gives users an overview of the document's content and organization. It allows readers to go directly to a specific section of an online document. It provides an accurate and unambiguous listing of where to locate specific topics, subtopics, and important topic details. For example, a developer coming to a website, let's say a product development website, Telerik UI. Okay, a developer comes and he will look at the TOC. Okay, he'll open the TOC and he'll check for all the, because the TOC gives a glimpse of all the features that are there, that will be coming. The structure, the design time. Is this particular button available at design time? Yes. There's a getting started. There are other features, properties, methods even. Can you customize this button? Yes. So can you use tooltips? Yes. So all these features will be available from the TOC itself. So we have to keep these things in our mind when we write the TOC. I'll give you another example. Yeah. This is how we write the proposed TOC, okay, at different levels. And it's just an example of button TOC. First of all, we'll create the overview, the key features, the design time, like how it works at design time, the getting started, which is very important for every TOC, then cover all the features. And we make sure that all the items should be at the first level itself, that we don't go to the second or third levels, because it will be difficult for the developer to find out. Okay, so we try to keep all to the first level. Now, what we do while creating TOC is that we check all the control specifications shared by the PM. Download the assembly package for the control. This I had mentioned earlier as well. Experiment with the control in the IDE. So I got a button. For example, I got a button, and or maybe I got a rich text, let's say a tree view. A tree view, and I experiment with the tree view. Or what are the, what are the important features that these have? Can I dock it in the parent control? Yes, I can dock it. Okay, I can change the appearance, image can be changed. I can go for some other, just any other feature, like there's so many other features, auto scroll, start position, sizing. I can change all these properties. Okay, I'll check the product specification and confirm all these features. And another thing is that confirm all features provided by the PMs. And if I find any bug, if I get to see any bug that this feature is not working as per the specification, I'll report that bug to the PM. Okay, there's it's a tool called Jira. You can report that bug to the PM, and then these features go on hold for some time. Then we wait for the bug resolution, and once the bug is resolved, we can continue preparing the doc. That's how we follow at our organization. Okay, then moving on to the, is it clear till now?
Yes, Sonia, very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, yes.
Okay. Then goes the getting started quick start guide. This is also a developer when he comes to a TOC. The most important thing that he sees is getting started. Getting started in the sense he wants to get quickly started with the product, with the control. So it is the most important topic, and it needs to be very simple, so that developers don't prefer these jargons. So they want to easily get started with it. Okay, every dev wants to get started with the control library, And you see, simple quick start is indispensable for DevDocs. So our priority should be to quickly share the product functionality without any, anything like no big introductions and all. Very simple. The developer need not spend much time reading pages after pages. Okay. So there are two types of quick start guides that you can create. One is keeping it very, very simple, just directly giving instructions. For example, this one. Okay. There's again the button control. And as you can see, this is a very simple quick start, right? How does it begin? You can add button at design time or run time. Simple. Then the writer goes to write design time. Then he goes to write run time. And design time, very simple steps. It's very easy for a developer to get started. Then goes to run time. Run time, he'll cover all the codes. This is a very simple. This is a very good example of a simple quick start. Another thing what we can do is that we can present a sample scenario to make it more lively. We can show your creativity in your quick start guide as well. Okay, so that, for example, what I've done is I tried to make this quick start. This is basically about the progress bar control. Okay, progress bar. Can you tell me what a progress bar does?
This shows the progress of a task or whatever we're doing.
Exactly.
How much percentage we have completed, things like that. Yeah.
How much percentage completed. So what can you see here? Can you guess what is this progress bar doing here in this application? It's a small application.
The amount of water that this person has drank.
Yeah,
I
per
think
day,
that's
daily
progress.
water reminder. Yeah. So the final range that I've kept is 10 glasses of water. So per button click, this is the idea of the concept of the quick guide, a quick start guide, that per button click, which is adding a glass of water, the progress bar will indicate how much a glass of water the person has consumed in a day, right? So this is one way of showing the quick start guide in a more creative manner. Okay, so this is not this is simple, at the same time a creative approach. Fine. So which do you find better, the other one or this? Which approach do you find better? I'm asking. The simple approach or the creative approach? Which do you prefer? Which one do you prefer?
The creative one?
The first,
The creative
the first
approach.
one.
The creative one.
Because it is visuals, yeah, it's appealing, visually appealing as well.
Yes, visually appealing. So if you use diagrams and all, it's going to appeal to the developer. And he can, while he's creating the application, he knows how to use this particular progress bar. Okay, that was an example of doing quick start guides. Then doc plans. Doc plans, as I've told you, doc plans will cover everything. Doc plans will cover what feature you are adding, what are the classes, what are the properties, what are the methods involved in this particular feature, which event is involved. Okay, so all the ones in the bold you can keep in mind, the important API involved. Also, the doc plan, while we share with the developer, you need to give a strong understanding of the feature. You need to get a strong understanding of the feature, what it is doing, and there should be no doubts. There shouldn't be any doubts there, okay? Because developers are going to see it. So you need to nicely go through the IDE and check all the features here, how this is going to work and all. Then we have TOC location of the new feature. TOC, you also need to find out the location where this new feature will get accommodated in the TOC. Then use case or purpose, if any. Then any reference links, list of references from where info was collected for notifying the product managers. All these things are done via Confluence. Do you guys use Confluence, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So yes. So all these things are done on Confluence. Where we will share the feature, all the things related to the feature, the important API involved, everything. It could be the design view of the control. All the product specifications will be used in the doc plans. Then the API referencing. API referencing. I'll show you an example for API referencing. Yeah, API referencing. This is how API referencing is done. It's usually done either in another page or it is done just below the TOC itself, within the TOC. which is the last node, okay, API referencing. So developers, if they want to work, if they want to see the classes, if they want to see the properties or methods, they have to go to the API referencing, okay? It will have namespaces, classes, different classes, and different classes, the methods, the properties used. He can, for example, there's an awaiter property. He can use this property to set something in the progress bar, like that. There are classes. There are again enumerations, structures, interfaces, delegates. So it will be easy for the developer. So it should be located on a place that is easily visible to the user. That's why we keep it just next to the TOC, API referencing. And then we have adding code snippets. We make sure that we add code snippets that are easy to paste. For example, we make sure that we have the code snippets that this is coded in SAML language. Okay, so we make sure that these code snippets are completely workable. That is, if a developer, he copies the code and he tries to use it in his IDE somewhere here, just showing you as an example, if he tries to use it somewhere here, it should be working, right? It should not show any errors. That is how, so these codes should be error proof. And to do that, we always cross-check with the developers that these codes are final before we build the file. And there are different languages used, which should be mentioned, in the widget that we are using. It needs to be mentioned that we're using SAML, whatever language it is. Sometimes it could be C#, it could be JavaScript, it could be Java, it could be Python, whatever it is. Okay, and then some of the tips and tricks is that from the beginning of the release, as a developer documentation writer, we have to stay in the loop. Okay, you have to connect with developers and product managers. You can even chat with them if you want to. You have to stay in the loop so that you don't miss anything before the release. Be proactive about all the accesses. You may need access to different pages which you will not be otherwise given. So you need to send mails about accessing these things. Be very proactive. Then existing docs also need to be reviewed and updated. Then course will go without testing. Everything will be tested, and keeping it very short. The content will be short. And if there are any errors and shortcomings, we need to quickly report it via Jira before the release. And again, we use a source control system for documentation. So this will help us to save the images. Everything is saved in the source control system. Codes, your images, your templates. You can roll back to your previous version and see which writer had done what. You can spot the errors, what was done. And then another important thing is the landing page. An example here is for Dev Express documentation. Okay, this is a landing page for the developer documentation. So as you can see here, all the technologies need to be mentioned. Sometimes as writers, we also need to we may also have to play a role in writing the landing page as well. So we need to make sure that all the technologies are covered here, whatever we are doing, all the frameworks and everything is covered. I would say clarity, again, that the audience is developers. Most of the developer documentation can be accessed via the support documentation tab, like any other product documentation. And many devs come to the original doc site from the landing page. And a good documentation landing page will have the following features. Okay, so there will be a small non-navigatable text asking you to learn how to implement the features and everything. So reading the first line itself, you'll understand what this is. There are features, there are tutorials, there are API. Okay, it's a comprehensive documentation. There's a mini TOC. You can also go to blogs, hyperlinks. Okay, there are hyperlinks here. You can go to blogs, you can go to demos, samples on GitHub. And then there is installation and setup, the technical support that is required, release histories of the latest releases, then all the controls that we are working with. You click on each control and goes to the separate documentation site. And then is the last page of all the references that are required for creating a developer documentation. Yes. Thank you.
Really like the documentation, Sonia. I feel that being a technical writer, you have really leveled up the technical part of the technical writer. So it was really technical and great to know all this.
Thank you.
Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we would like to take some questions that the audience would have. If so, you
Okay.
have any, you can unmute.
Hi, Sonia.
Hey,
I have
Netra
a
here.
question, but
I
not
have a
related to the work. But I just curious to know that are you getting double salary than developers because you're doing both the works?
I know I should be getting, but I'm not.
I have a related question to what was asked. And did you start off as the developer and then move on to documentation, or was it vice versa? Did you have to reinvent yourself as a developer, learn all the code, or how did you go about that?
The second one, I had to reinvent myself as a developer, a lot of learning, and then, yeah, then I had
But
to
I
start
really
writing.
love the session. I want to say because the account that I work with, we also code with Visual Studio, and every time I used to open my TFS interface, I used to get really intimidated with all the code, mostly because I don't want to break something. But I think
Yeah.
your session instantly clarified everything for me. I'm going to go tinker with the code now. It sounds lovely. You've lit
Yeah,
a
it's
fire
very
inside
fun.
me. You've shown me how much I love it.
Yeah, actually, you can create an app by yourself. It's very interesting. Initially, it looks like intimidating, but I have created so many apps by myself because it's very interesting. You know,
So might be
whatever app you want to
because
create.
you created apps by yourself, might be because you have the UI also, right? So the person who does not know how to code, they can use the UI and create it. Is it
Yeah,
so?
yeah, exactly, exactly. The IDE provides you with a UI as well, so it's easy for a beginner as well. Yeah.
Right.
Overall, wonderful session, Sonia. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Sonia, maybe you can like take a session how to create a basic app or something like that you in the Visual Studio. You said right, you have done everything from the scratch, so that would be helpful because even I am using Visual Studio. We also have that provided by our office, but I have also not tried
Okay.
playing around that.
Okay.
Thank you for the session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Sonia.
Hi.
My doubt is, we have, I'm working at Agilisis and we have an API documentation in Swagger. And apart from that, I'm writing it in writing API documentation in Word. This why we are asked to create it in Word is the target audience is CEOs and product managers of other companies.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm not sure. I don't know like why the API documentation in Swagger itself can cover what is needed for project managers and other CEOs and these kind of audience. Is there any way to integrate both these audience into same document portal or something like that? Do you understand what I say?
Yeah, I understood. I think it is because CEOs and directors, I think it's the same thing. They get intimidated when they see these, the API documentation like that. So maybe when it is on Word, it is better for them to understand. It is different from the developer's
Yeah.
perspective, right? Yeah, it could be. As far as integration is concerned, I think we should check. There could be some apps that can be used to integrate. I have to check that. I'll keep it in my mind. I have written it down. So I'll check it.
Okay.
To answer that question, Sonia, some standard static site generators do support plugins or libraries to integrate Swagger UI output as is. As a matter of fact, Confluence also offers a plugin that can integrate a Swagger UI specification. So in a nutshell, yes, it's possible.
It's possible. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that info.
Can you like ping like what are the platforms or whatever it is plugins? So few names for that for me to refer. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just want to know a few names of the platform or plugins that can be used for this particular purpose.
Yeah. I don't know who was answering the question.
I'll answer this.
Okay.
All the others, please go on mute because I'm hearing an echo. Okay, so depending on the plugin, okay, so depends on what kind of platform you are using. Depending on that, you need to go for a plugin. Say, for example, Confluence has many plugins. The same plugin will not work with Hugo, right? So you have to first decide what website are you building on, and then just like Anandyu said just now, that Hugo has a UI, Swagger UI plugin, right? So you have to see, as I said, first decide on what website, what static site generator if you're using, or even if you're using something like, just Swagger UI also, then use some plugin. So actually it's not really feasible to give some plugins which will be, because otherwise you'll be lost in that sea. So many plugins, so many these things, and ultimately it does not integrate with any of your platform on which you are publishing your doc site. Right. Okay. So a simple Google will do. Like if you're using Hugo or any other website for that sake, whatever you are using, you have to then just research on what kind of plugin can integrate with your website, Swagger UI. And I'm sure it's not really difficult, but if you're very clear with what kind of website it is, you'll get a lot of answers and all that. And as Anandya is already telling, it depends on the content platform. Yes.
Even last Saturday when we had attended a session, somebody in the end spoke about, she was integrating Swagger APIs in Madcap Flare. When I asked her, she said she used a plugin. I don't remember the name who she was. It was a very good presentation that she gave. So she had shown
Yeah,
at
I remember that. Okay.
So we have the recording as well.
Yeah. So you see, but then that it has that specific plugin. Also, developers, you can ask some of the developers to write some code and just integrate Swagger UI also. I mean, that also some companies do that. So
just Google it, you'll find it. Yeah.
There'll be so many.
Great. So in the interest of time, one last question, something which hasn't been asked.
Hi, Sonia. I just had a quick question. So you mentioned you typically create H1 level headings for the developers. So I just wanted to understand those headings or TOCs are based on the specific functionality or the button wise, or you have everything in one document, or you segregate the documents per functionalities.
No, we don't segregate the document for functionalities. Everything is at one place. Right? Everything moves at one place.
Document with
one document with, yeah.
Anshita, we can wind up now.
Sure, sir. So thank you everybody for joining. I think.
Thank you, Anshita. Thank you, Puneet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And everybody, if you want to continue the discussion, please go ahead. Telegram group is there. Keep asking, keep answering, keep helping each other. Happy weekend. And happy Sankranti to all who celebrate. Take care.
Bye-bye.
And yes, the last one. Thank you, Anshita and Team NCR. Sorry, I forgot that.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.